Hi, we're students from Baldwin Wallace University and we're studying speech language pathology, and we are here to talk to you about cortical visual impairment. Cortical visual impairment is when your eyes can register the images, but they cannot get processed by your occipital lobe, which is the part of the brain that is processing images. So, individuals with cortical visual impairments will benefit from accessible materials with bright colors and high contrast backgrounds. So we are here to talk to you about some examples of those materials.
That's really good. The individual should only work with one or maybe two items at once, and that are well lit and have high contrast. Level 2, the individuals are starting to use their eyes with purpose and recognize things. It's important to incorporate looking at things and narration into the individual's everyday life. The caregiver should still be aware of reducing visual clutter by still wearing solid clothing, but the individual can look at more than two things at once. Level 3, the individual is starting to use their eyes with function. Using their eyes should still be incorporated into everyday life with narration. However, they can look at multiple things. The caregiver should be aware that a person with level 3 cortical visual impairment will get fatigued visually easily and should be aware to watch for signs of fatigue.
Sometimes CVI can be hard to detect. Some things that you might want to look for or ask yourself when working with an individual that you might think has CVI would be, when you put something in front of them, are they reaching for it? Do they respond to visual stimuli? Are they recognizing familiar faces? With this being said, individuals who do have CVI have difficulties taking in information and processing that. So something that's really important when using materials is you want them to be high contrast. So with this is called a core board. This is a low-tech core board. So this has, particularly I made it a black background with brightly colored pictures. This makes it easier for individuals who have CVI to recognize the icons and process them in their brain. Core boards can be made on an array of different websites. This one was specifically made on LessonPix, but you can Google different other core board makers, like I think there's one specifically called Core Board Maker. You could also do it on a Google Doc if you're tech savvy. You can make them specific to each client, specific to an activity. This one contains an array of just very generic words like go, stop, tablet, no tablet, feel, confused, bored, angry, want. You can use this with an array of different clients, so someone who's completely nonverbal or someone who only uses 1 to 2 word utterances.
Right, so another strategy we use for our CVI individuals is called a red line anchor. A red line anchor is basically, it helps individuals attend to visual tasks easier because the red line, it is a high contrast color. So you have an individual that loves Sudoku, great, but they have CVI. Well, don't fret. You just need a red marker, and then you could have them highlight the bottom so they can attend to the visual task, or you could also have them highlight the entire box so they can see the box easier. You also have an individual that loves to read. But don't worry, we don't have to ruin the book with a red marker. You could quickly just cut a red strip of paper, and then you could move the strip down like this. And then there you have it. This strategy is effective and low cost.
Hi, so here are some examples of some materials that are useful for individuals with cortical visual impairment. These are some examples of books I found online with high contrast materials. So high contrast materials helps a person with cortical visual impairment process the information easier. So these books can be found on Amazon for about $15. They are important because they have textures, so the person can explore different textures as well as images that they can see.
This is an example of a tri-fold poster board. You can put high contrast materials or images onto the poster board for the person to touch and explore. The caregiver can also sit next to the person and narrate what they are exploring to give a dual sensory experience. This is an example of a cookie sheet. You can put different images or materials onto the cookie sheet to add high contrast. This can be used the same way that the poster board can be used, where the caregiver can sit next to the individual and narrate, adding more language to the person's experience.
Hello, so if you want to work on hand-eye coordination, relational concepts such as in and out, directionality such as move to the right, color and shape recognition, and comparison, a high contrast puzzle is good for you. So what I did, you don't have to buy all of these expensive materials. You could make it right outside of your home. You just need to grab a piece of black paper and some high contrast colors such as red or yellow, and then you just put the shapes on top of that black piece of paper, trace an outline, and then you just cut the outline, and then there you have it, a DIY high contrast puzzle. So high contrast colors, they give the individual a good visual stimuli to help them process the information better. Just remember to start with simple and familiar shapes because it encourages motivation and engagement. And then you could also start with just 2 to 3 pieces, and once the individual is comfortable enough, just increase the number of pieces to increase the complexity. And just also remember to use large puzzle pieces so that individuals can grab them easily to work on hand-eye coordination. And to work on relational concepts, just ask the individual to just put the puzzle piece in the puzzle. And then you can also ask them to take the puzzle piece outside of the puzzle. You could also ask them to put the square next to the triangle.
Some other strategies that may be useful when working with individuals with CVI are using tactile and verbal information paired with visual stimuli. Next would be shining a light on an object. This is sort of like a light cue. So you could take a flashlight and have the object in mind. It could be dark, and then you can shine a light so it's a really high contrast picture for them. Next, you want to use very consistent routines with your client. And if you're going to change up your routine, to do it in a slow manner. You also want to keep your target pictures or objects simple. So we've been talking about this high contrast. You want to ensure that there's not too many colors going around, too many textures that are going to confuse them and their brain. You also want to see if you can determine a visual field that is stronger than others. So with some individuals with CVI, their upper left visual field is a strong point. So putting objects or pictures in that field will help them be able to see and process better. Next, you also want to ensure that you are using very consistent language. So if you have an object in front of a client and you're describing that object, you want to use very consistent descriptor words so they're able to carry over those words in that vocabulary. Last but not least, you want to ensure that there is no excess noise or visual distractions going on that's going to distract their brain from learning. So if you're in a room with very bright colored walls or pictures, you want to ensure that you can maybe cover those or go into a room that has maybe white walls and bring in 1 or 2 toys that they can focus their attention on.
Alright, so thank you for watching our video. If you have any further questions about CVI, just refer back to our pamphlet. Thank you.
Bye!